In a world where PlayStation bi-curiously tests the waters of crossplay, and the future of consoles themselves hangs in the balance, three nerds will talk about it on Discord. This is Sick and Wired.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Sick and Wired podcast, where we dive into the latest news and topics across the game industry and give you our own personal take. Today I'm joined by our public relations manager and contributor to the site, David Fraley.
Hello.
As well as Brandon Perro, columnist and reviewer for the site.
Hello.
All right, guys. I know we like to start and go into this about kind of what we've been playing this week. So, David, kind of what have you been up to?
I have started playing Forza Horizon 4, and let me tell you, that game is so good.
I hear it's beautiful.
I'm sure we'll end up talking about it a little bit, but it's just so dang good looking. Like, there's just nothing wrong with that game at all.
Now, is that the one that has, like, the level that has, like, you can ride on, like, a Halo vehicle?
Yeah.
Part of the map? Have you gotten a chance to try that?
No, not yet. That's, I think, a little bit further on, but I did see some of the gameplay footage that IGN showed, and it's like you're racing like a pelican. And they've got like the Halo music and everything, and they had something in Forza Horizon 3 with that, where you were like, they were playing the Halo music and everything, but you were like driving through a tunnel, and it was like really well done. But like this one, they went above and beyond that. They show Master Chief, like they went all out, like it is full blown Halo, and I'm so amped for it.
Now, Brandon, what have you been up to?
This week has been getting myself acquainted with what little is left of the Telltale's Walking Dead series. So that was on Tuesday, and then Wednesday I was really excited. They released Life is Strange 2 episode 1 a day early for some reason. So we were all able to play it on Wednesday. So
I bet that was a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, that was pretty much my Wednesday, and then some of Thursday. But since then I'm still trying to get that Spider-Man Platinum.
I'm the only person here that probably has still not touched Spider-Man, and I feel like that's like a horrible shame.
It's
a sin.
I was gonna say God frowns upon you.
Like right now, the main thing I've been playing though is Game Dev Tycoon, and it is.
Oh, I love that.
It's
fun.
On your
phone?
Oh, I think they have a version for the phone, but the one that I'm playing is on Steam, and it is a ton of fun. Like, man,
I got that game back when you could only get it on, wait for it, the Windows Store on PC. The Windows Store I would go on, and it's come a long way. They put a lot of bug fixes and extra content in it since the first release, of course. But I still find myself just going back to that game after a few years now. I think it's been out.
Yeah, it came out in 2013, I think.
Yeah. So I love that game.
I started, because I'm a weirdo. Like, I made a gaming company. I called it Sick Critic Studios, and I bankrupted it in about 30 minutes. So, I think it's safe to say that I should probably stay on the journalism side of games and not make games, because I don't know what constitutes a good one, apparently. So,
God. Oh, man.
But speaking from his 20, maybe even 30 minutes of experience.
Hey, I had one good game. I called it like Super Brawl or something. It was like
Super Brawler.
It was supposed to be like superheroes and like an action game, and I think like the highest rating I got on any game was like a 5. And then I finally started to understand why developers and publishers hate us so much, because we just eviscerate it for some reason. But I mean, other than that, that's pretty much all I've been up to.
Good stuff.
Great.
I gotta jump into that game. I've been wanting to play it since I heard about it, and I haven't had the time because, well...
It's only like $10. I mean, I would say it's worth the $10, but it's also got like one of those games where you can only play it for so long before you're just like, I need to pick something else up. But it's definitely worth it. For what it costs.
It's not even the price. It's just the fact that there's so many other games that are coming out.
That's the story of our life.
Yeah, especially during the fall and winter seasons coming up.
Speaking of stuff coming out, I guess it's a good point to go over our news for the week. I hear that Anthem has finally hit its alpha stage.
Yeah, which
pretty exciting news.
Yeah, I was gonna say pretty exciting.
The significance of that is like that means they've got a full game now. I mean, they've got a completed game. Of course, not with all the kinks worked out. That's why it's an alpha. But I mean, that's a big stride for any game.
Yeah, it's like they've got like all of the main mechanics and assets and everything loaded into the game so that it's actually playable, but there's still like a ton of bugs and other things that they have to polish and get fixed up before they even... That's even before they hit beta stage, too.
Yeah, like my biggest concern is going to be, is this game going to be more like kind of like a Destiny competitor? Or I would like to see it kind of take a mold of its own, you know, and kind of like be a little bit different than all of like the competition. So like I don't really know what to expect from it because what we've seen is very, very limited.
I think what we can expect is something that has Destiny's Destiny elements in the sense of the actual online system and how that works, and you play with your friends and that kind of stuff. Like that system's going to be very reminiscent of Destiny, but I think where Anthem's probably going to not only differentiate itself but probably surpass games like Destiny and Destiny 2 is a more compelling story that BioWare is usually known for, excluding the most recent Andromeda unfortunate events.
Yeah.
Which they came out and they said like that they knew that they should have given that game more time. But see, I think a lot of that stuff too is like based on the actual publisher. Like EA was probably like, hey, you guys need to get this game out now, you know, and like they weren't really giving them the time that they needed to make sure that game was where it needed to be.
Well, you know, it was given to a branch of BioWare that had never made a full game before. They had worked on like DLC and some updates and stuff like that for other EA games and some of the Mass Effect series. But other than that, this was a studio that had never actually made a full game before, and they said, "Oh, here's one of our most trusted and one of our best series we've ever done. Quick, make a game for it in like a year and a half." And they were like, "Oh,
yeah."
Yeah, that's a good reason like you bring that up because, you know, the guys that were responsible for the trilogy that was so successful, then you put it on a studio that, yes, they're in the same family, but actually really just don't have the experience with a huge IP that is like very, very passionate to a lot of gamers. And I feel like that they kind of missed the mark on that, but...
No, you're right, they did. And I mean, I didn't get to play it, like I have it, just because my buddy, I think, picked it up for like really cheap. But, yeah, it's like, you know, I don't know. I've never been a big
Mass Effect fan?
Yeah, I kind of missed out on that when they were coming out. And I thought about jumping into this one, but it's like between like and I've heard that it's not like a bad game, it's just not as high of a caliber as the other ones were.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. But I don't want to touch too much on Andromeda because that's some old news. But also another key thing coming out that Microsoft is announcing keyboard and mouse support for the Xbox, which is pretty significant news. But also it's kind of they're kind of leaving it in the open. So they're going to have support for Xbox, but it's also going to be up to the developers themselves to actually implement it into the games. So just because they have it doesn't mean you'll be able to pick up Fortnite and have keyboard and mouse control. It'll be up to Epic Games to actually put that in there. So, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's a good step, and then it's really going to be up to the type of game themselves and whether they want to implement that or not.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. I don't think I mean, it's obviously going to. I think it's going to have a slow start for sure, with developers kind of warming up to it, and now developers have to go another step further with their process of development. But it's. I think overall this is going to be a really cool addition to a multiplayer experiences on Xbox, and I think it lends itself to more crossplay opportunity, especially since like now Xbox is going to come out with this, and this is going to be our main topic for today. But this whole thing with PlayStation and their crossplay. I mean, at this point, they're running out of reasons to not do crossplay.
Yeah,
like they had a defensible claim in saying, if they were to say that, the controller versus it's a different controller versus mouse and keyboard. Well, now you've got mouse and keyboard on console, PlayStation. Get it together. Like, let's go.
Yeah, and I don't want to dive too much into that because I know that's going to be our main topic. But as far as like you're like exactly right when it comes to it being on the developer side, it will kind of leave an equal playing field to open up for crossplay, because that's been a core reason as why they don't do it. Because most people know when it comes to shooters and competitive games and like esports, like mouse and keyboard has a clear advantage over console players, and this I feel like will kind of even that playing field, and like maybe we can kind of see some cool innovations coming to the gaming industry, and like I like the way it's heading. So I props to Microsoft for actually doing this, and I think you'll see a lot of developers and also console makers kind of follow suit. But other than that, we also have Life is Strange 2. I know this is something Brandon probably will want to touch on. How you liking it so far?
It's got a lower score on Metacritic right now than its predecessor, but there are some aspects to it where I actually like it even better than the first game. For example, voice acting is not. I mean, it was never what the series was meant for, and it still really isn't. But it is still 10 times better than it was. The voice acting's top notch. And without making it sound too much like a review of the game, I like the new premise of the family relationship, because it centers on, for those of you who don't know, it centers on Sean and his little brother Daniel, and after a catastrophic event kind of thing, they have to leave their town, just the two of them, and Sean's 16 and I believe Daniel is 9, 8, 9, 10, somewhere in that range, and so they're on the road on their own, and so I just think there's very little that is more impactful, in my opinion, than a really strong family bond. Like relationships, spouses or partners in that regard, or friendships like you had in the first couple Life is Strange games. It's not as strong. It's not blood. It's not there isn't as big of a sense of like protection and needing each other, and I think that's something that really benefits the new game.
Yeah, that makes sense. Also, I'd say probably like the biggest piece of news we have this week, and something I kind of want to dive into here. Sony has recently announced that there will be no PSX this year for 2018 in North America. Kind of a big deal. I know they said the main reason is probably because they just don't have enough content to make it worth it. And they kind of want to focus on stuff that's going to be coming out here in the near future, which I kind of understand, not putting on a conference and just not having enough content to satisfy everybody. But also it's kind of like, this is something that's been happening for years now, and it's just like, whoa, like this is extremely unexpected. Just kind of way out of left field here. So, I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on this? Do you think this is going to be something that's going to happen in the future, or just maybe just a one-time deal?
To be honest with you, like I think it's just like a one-time deal. I think I mean, we already have Spider-Man. You know, they showed off like a little bit of that at E3. They've already shown off more than enough of Days Gone, and I don't think they really want to show off too much of The Last of Us Part 2. There's not really too much else that's in their lineup, and we already have God of War 2, so it's like all of their first-party studios are pretty much spent as far as content goes. So I fully back the fact that they are just not going to do one this year, and I don't think it's going to hurt them in the least. I think that I liked actually the fact that Sean Layden was honest enough to come out and say, hey, like, we're not doing one this year. We just don't have enough content to try to bring everybody together. It's just not worth anybody's time.
Yeah, and like, okay, so like Layden, I'll just go ahead and quote what he said real quick. Layden said, quote, "We won't have it in the States this year. The reasons behind that really are we don't have a lot of progress that we're making on our games. Now that we have Spider-Man out the door, we're looking down into 2019 games like Dreams and Days Gone." So that just says, look, hey, we don't have the content. It's not worth your time. It's not worth our time. We'd rather focus on the things to get you excited about last year. And like that makes complete sense because they've already hit us with 2 possible Game of the Years, titles coming out. And, compared to every other console and developer out there, I think they are leagues ahead, besides, what Nintendo's doing. So, I mean, I understand it, and I would rather them be straightforward and honest, like, hey, we don't have the content, than to put on a lackluster PSX this year. And get everyone over there, get people like covering it, and then people are going to be like, well, PlayStation has nothing. So I'm okay with it. Kind of sucks because I do look forward to PSX every year, but what can you do?
I think this is something that maybe a lot of developers and publishing studios need to take a look at, as far as like, if you're not going to have the content, who needs the extra expense? The video game industry is so competitive as it is, and this whole thing recently, I know it's pretty old news now, but I like to reference it because I feel like we're seeing it more and more, especially with Telltale and Capcom closing a studio. These games are getting too big to fail, as in they can't. If they fail, it could mean the end of the studio. So money's always tight in the industry, no matter what way you look at it. And so I feel like this is a good way to step back and say, okay, hold on. If we're truly thinking about our audience, if we're truly thinking about the fans, then why would we put something out there that not only isn't going to make us enough money, we feel, but if the fans ultimately don't want it in the end, or they're not going to be impressed with it, or they're not going to enjoy it as much as they have in the past, or something like that, then why bother? And I think that's a good thing for the industry.
I would agree.
Plus, you got to figure in the fact, too, like, if they were going to show something off, say, just out of conversation's sake, say they came out and they're like, oh, yeah, we're doing PSX, it's December 10th or whatever. Well, then you have to take people from, all the teams that are going to show off their games, have them, make another gameplay reel or another CGI reel that we haven't seen before, spend all this time, effort, and energy into doing something like that when it could be redirected towards actually, progressing the game further. So
yeah, because they can't just that's one thing that definitely wouldn't fly, is if they stepped out there and just showed us a bunch of stuff that we've already seen.
Oh yeah,
that's just no thanks.
People would go nuts.
Yeah, and that's like kind of like I was saying earlier. I would rather them focus on the future than to sit there and show us something that people are just going to sit there and give them a lot of flack for. And we all know that PlayStation's been taking a lot of flack here lately, which I guess we can kind of segue into our main topic, our viral topic of the day, which is cross-platform play. And now that Sony has finally announced that they're going to have a beta for Fortnite for crossplay, I think that might be live now, actually.
It is. Yeah.
And what's your guys' take? What have you guys heard? Feedback from the community?
To be honest with you, I haven't heard like a whole lot. I mean, I know when they announced it, my Twitter feed was just blowing up with people retweeting the official tweet from PlayStation going, yes, finally, like, you guys are finally listening to the community and the players, like, we've only been asking for this for, years now, that we, can get the crossplay. And I think that they definitely needed to. Like, that was, like I just said, like, we've been asking for this. There's literally no reason. I'm not saying you have to allow crossplay with every game, but even some of the more popular multiplayer games, like your Rocket League, like Fortnite and Warframe and everything, like, these are games that you need to allow crossplay with, because they do cover pretty much every console out there, every platform. So the fact that they're, at least starting off with Fortnite, I think is really going to kind of put them back in the good graces of the players.
Well, like, what's crazy about this is the fact that it took so long for Sony to come to the table. And we know, like, they can say whatever excuse that they wanted to say for they felt like it was the superior experience on PlayStation, all the technical difficulties that came with crossplay. But if you guys remember, if you look back a little bit more than half a year ago, I don't know the exact date, I could look it up for you, but there was an instance where Xbox and PlayStation players were actually put into the same game of Fortnite. And there were absolutely zero issues, and players were noticing that when they were killing people, it was showing PlayStation gamer tags. So we knew then and there that they had the capability to do it on Epic Games' side as far as their servers. Epic Games could definitely handle it. It came down to whether Sony was in fact going to do it or not. And, like, my biggest question is, why now? Like, what is the reason? Was it the backlash they were getting from the community? Was it, we just have to admit that Fortnite is huge, and it is making so much money right now. And if you do not grab a piece of the pie, then you're just going to be left out. And with all that backlash, people are just going to other platforms because they want to play with their friends. So, me personally, I think this had more to do with a monetization effort by Sony realizing what they were missing out on than more so trying to actually, satisfy the community. Because if I'm being frank, Sony really hasn't done much to satisfy its community as far as, like, this conversation goes, and I still don't know if they're going to continue this. I would not be shocked if Fortnite was the only game that they actually supported crossplay for within the next 12 months. It may be different, but that's just kind of how I look at it.
I think one of the big things when looking at crossplay and this whole discussion of why did they do it, why didn't they do it, and they released a statement. He said, we believe that the best place to play Fortnite, and to play any game for that matter, is PlayStation. But I look at it, and there are a few things I like to compare when looking at business practices like this in the gaming industry. And I look at a company like Nintendo, where they put out, very few companies have managed to put out as many classic and as great titles as they have, but yet they're not known for their business practices. In fact, some would say that they have a kind of a crappy business perspective. And so then I look at the whole PlayStation issue, and I think of, like, okay, well, the day that Rocket League came out for Nintendo Switch, you were immediately playing with players on all kinds of different platforms, on all the different platforms. So when I look at a company like that that's known for its irrational and kind of weird decisions and stuff, even things down to, like, the whole friend number on the on Switch, and you're like, what the heck is that? But yet they're embracing cross-platform. Everyone's embracing cross-platform. What's the deal, Sony? Like, it just boggles my mind that somehow they're trying to convince us that it's just because they think PlayStation's the best place to do it.
Well, they even had one of the guys that used to work over at Sony, that was like one of the executives, come out and say, like, it has nothing to do with, whether or not it's the best platform, or, like, anybody over at Sony is going to say that, because that's, if they were sitting back saying, oh, well, I actually really like Microsoft's platform better, you'd get fired. Like, you're supporting the competition by saying that. But one of the executives guys said, it's literally about the money. Like, Sony does not want crossplay because then that means you can, like, there's no real reason for you to play on the PlayStation. You can go over on the Xbox and play and have the same account and spend money on the account or on the Xbox store, and that money's not going to Sony. So that's the whole reason why they were kind of hesitant on it. But it's like, when you have enough people, and this goes with absolutely any sort of situation. If you have enough people that go against you and say, no, like, you need to do this, and you petition, and you got people just rioting over it pretty much, you will eventually change your mind.
But the thing is that even that whole money reason to me doesn't make any sense. And them not... Because the deal is that they're not... By disallowing crossplay, they're not gaining any extra people from that. There aren't people looking at the no crossplay and thinking now, oh, you know what, PlayStation, they've got it all together, maybe I should go out and buy a PlayStation and get it on there or something. No, all it does is aggravate people, and I don't see how... I just have a hard time understanding from a business perspective how they thought this was going to go right for them. And now they're pulling a 180 saying, okay, you guys have made yourselves heard, let's see how it goes. But in actuality, what they're saying is, ooh, we screwed up, let's turn the tides a little bit.
Yeah, and like, I don't think this would have been that big of a concern for them had it not been for something as big and viral as Fortnite. It took a game that is literally causing kids. I went to a Titans game like 3 weeks ago, and I sat there and we're not going to get into sports, but I sat there and I watched the game, and like, you know how like they show up like people dancing in the stands and stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm not kidding you. They showed maybe 80% of it was like kids, and every single one of them was doing a Fortnite dance. Every single one of these kids. And when you can influence the population like that, when you have people like, it's very meme worthy, it's a very viral thing that's going on with Fortnite, and you look at it and like Sony is the only one not embracing it, then it's like a huge backlash. And like, there is, like, I don't think this would have happened if it were something along the lines of, like, let's just say Rocket League. Like, Rocket League could not get this big of a momentum to force them into crossplay. There's not that much money that's going to switch over to this. There's not that much. I mean, there's a huge Rocket League following, but nowhere near the following. You have like $100,000 tournaments going on with Fortnite. You have, streamers, that's all they're playing. It's like the #1 game played on Twitch. Like, so when you have this big of a phenomenon going on in the gaming industry, you have no choice. And I feel like this is like forced them into a corner, and they're finally coming along. But my biggest question is this going to transition to other games? Like, I know like something we want to talk about today is like Fallout 76. So like, I know with Bethesda has had a huge issue with Sony, and that's been, Pete Hines has said things verbally, and like, they've had issues with Sony when it comes to crossplay. Now I know they've said that they're not doing crossplay whatsoever. And, that may just be on their end. But is this going to transition to other games? I would love to see that, but from everything that we've seen from Sony in the past, I just can't wrap my mind around them actually doing it. And I feel like they're just doing this mainly because of a monetization effort. And when it comes to Sony, it's mostly about the money. Now, I could be wrong, but that's just my personal take on it.
Well, here's my biggest thing about all of this, okay, is when you look back at the very start of all the Sony and Xbox stuff, okay, so you had Sony PlayStation 2 and you had the original Xbox. Original Xbox was just gaining its legs, and so it didn't have a whole lot of clout, whereas Sony did. Sony had the first PlayStation, then they go into PlayStation 2, and they were still bangers in the industry. Like, they were ruling everything. So they got this huge big head about themselves, and they got this, just this huge, whatever you want to call it, and then all of a sudden when they came out with the PlayStation 3, it got them in trouble. They were like, oh, well, we can charge, $600 for this console and, all this other stuff, and it put them in a deep hole. Like, they did not sell as many as the Xbox 360, because the Xbox 360 was doing everything right, bringing all these games over. I mean, they were just you know, even when they had like the Red Ring of Death, like they were saying, listen, like we're gonna, you know, send us your consoles, we're gonna fix them, send them back to you, they're gonna be good as new. You know, they were just doing everything that the customers and the players wanted. And then Xbox got a big head about them going into the Xbox One, into this current generation, where they were like, oh, this is gonna be your main entertainment center. You can plug your cable box and every, you know, your cable into this and all this other stuff, and all the players are sitting back going like, what the heck are you doing? Like, we didn't ask for any of this. Yeah, exactly. We were literally saying like, yeah, like, is this a freaking cable box now? Is, you know, like, what is this? And PlayStation 4, like, they saw that they had screwed up with the PlayStation 3, so that's when they started doing everything for the gamer. They're bringing all these games, all this other stuff. Well, now they're kind of going back to the way they were when the PlayStation 2 was ending and the PlayStation 3 was starting, was they're getting a big head about themselves, thinking they're top dog and all this other stuff, and that they don't need to do anything because they have the #1 selling console in the world and all this other stuff. And it's like, you're literally going to repeat your own mistakes if you don't sit back and learn from them.
That is a, like, I would say you're spot on, David. Like, that is, like, me personally. So when, you know, was never a huge, I had the PlayStation 2, I had the PlayStation 3, but I never was like a diehard PlayStation guy. I was always like Xbox through and through. And what made me sell my Xbox and go and buy a PlayStation was when they came out and they're like, we have the all-in-one package for you here, the all-in-one entertainment system. And they're doing things where you have to, you know, buy the game, but you can only play it on your system. It's tied to that account. You have to always be hooked online, and they had all these stipulations. They're trying to cut out the middleman, and you can't like trade your games, let someone borrow your game, and they're trying to monopolize it because they are the #1 system at that time. And you look back on it, and it was such a huge backlash that they backtracked, and they didn't even come out with what they were planning on doing. And it completely threw them out of whack. And now you're seeing the exact same thing happen with the PlayStation. PlayStation is, no doubt about it, the #1 selling system, period, hands down. There's no argument there. Xbox has done a lot of things to try to make up for the fact, but they're still well behind in that. And now, like you're saying, PlayStation has this huge head, and they feel like they can just get away with it because they have all these people buying their system, and they see the numbers, and they don't actually listen to the community. And this is exactly what happened to Xbox. They weren't listening to the community. They thought, okay, well, we have this huge selling system. We're just going to take over the market and do what we want with it. And that turned out horribly for them. And if they don't make the corrections now, then you're going to see the exact same thing happen to PlayStation. And I'm very curious to see how they, you know, move forward with this, especially with the next gen consoles. You know, eventually will come out probably in like 2020. But, you know, like back when all this was going on, that, you know, PlayStation kind of poked fun of Microsoft. I think you guys have all seen the video where they shared that YouTube video of them sharing like a video game with your friend that, you know, it's as simple as this, and they just hand them the game. I'm sure you guys have seen that. So now you have Microsoft poking fun at PlayStation, like when Minecraft went crossplay. And then you have Nintendo and Nintendo and Microsoft poking fun at Sony. And you have the exact same thing going on. And I kind of think that Sony is starting to realize this, and I hope that they make the correction now before the next gen console, before they come out and try to do some crazy stuff like Xbox did, and it blew up in their face.
Yeah. I mean, I hope, and I mean, I excuse me, I own all 3 consoles. I play all 3 consoles pretty evenly now, just because there's games across all 3 that I just enjoy playing. And I would hate to, and like, I didn't have a PlayStation 3 because Xbox 360, like, all of my friends had that. All of the popular games were coming out for it. There was no need for me to own a PlayStation 3. And same thing happened like during like the PlayStation 2 era and everything. Like, I had a PlayStation 2, but then like my PlayStation 2 broke, and I ended up getting an Xbox because I couldn't, you know. So I mean, I had both then, but like, I don't know, man. I don't want to see any console do, you know, any major developer, Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft. I don't want to see any of them make any like mistakes with their consoles or with their marketing or whatever, because it's like it's just gonna turn me off to buying their consoles when the next generation comes around.
Yeah.
Did we want to quickly chit chat about the keyboard and mouse stuff again? Because I know we said we were gonna kind of talk about that in more depth.
As far as Xbox?
Yeah, like, I mean, I personally have some thoughts on it. Like, the fact that you're going to bring that to the Xbox, I mean, I know you can even do it, too, with the PlayStation a little bit. Again, it just depends on what developers want to enable that type of, playability on their games. But, I mean, I'm personally, like I'm kind of half and half. Like, I'm all for it because it's like, okay, cool. Like, now I have a different way to play these games, and now it's like, if I want to play a first-person shooter with mouse and keyboard, well, now I don't have the, the handicap on me, I guess. But now it's like, okay, well, if I don't want to go out and necessarily spend the money on a Razer, keyboard and mouse, because I know they have like an agreement with them as far as that stuff goes. Like, that's going to really suck if I go to jump into, Call of Duty or whatever, and I'm playing against people that are just absolutely just destroying me, and then it's like, okay, well, yeah, because you're playing with a mouse and keyboard, I can't afford that. I've got the controller that's $60, but you go out and you buy a nice gaming keyboard and a gaming mouse that's all wired or whatever, you're spending probably close to $150,
Yeah.
It's like, that I don't know, I just feel like, in a weird way, it's like, it's really cool, because you don't really have an excuse to say, like, that you can't play mouse and keyboard, because we're offering it, but also at the same time, it's like, well, there's not everybody's got that kind of a budget to, go and blow on this stuff, and you're still kind of giving some gamers the unfair advantage.
That's what I think makes it really smart with Phil Spencer and Xbox deciding that they're going to leave it up to the developers. All right, no one is required to have a mouse and keyboard. Okay, in fact, there isn't even going to be support for mouse and keyboard on games unless the developer puts it in. So developers, this is on you. If this is going to be an issue, then that is on you to fix that issue, basically.
But take Call of Duty, though, because Call of Duty's coming to the PC. So you're already going to have, like, that game's already being, optimized for mouse and keyboard. So if you bring it to the Xbox, I mean, what are you going to do? You can't just be like, well, if you're on an Xbox, like, we're just going to disable it, Like, well, then people are going to kind of be sitting back going, like, what?
I have and just hear me out on this. This is kind of an out there kind of theory. So you have Xbox trying to transition and introduce mouse and keyboard to their systems. Now, tell me what the difference between a console with a mouse and keyboard is from a desktop PC, like a custom-built PC.
It just becomes about the power.
It comes about the power. Now, as far as gameplay-wise, why would you take your console you sit there, you like to sit on the couch, you play with remote, right? Why would you take your console, if you're going to play with mouse and keyboard, besides just having a cheaper option, why not just buy a cheaper gaming PC? And here's my wild theory here for you. This is like way out there. Me personally, I think Microsoft is trying to transition away from consoles. And like this is, go ahead and quote me on this now. I'm saying it now. You can call me out here in a couple of years if I'm wrong. But I personally think that Microsoft is trying to transition away from consoles, get console gamers more acclimated to playing on mouse and keyboard, and to try to take over more of the PC sector. Because that's where a majority of competitive gamers lie. As far as esports is concerned, if you go and play, if you talk to an Overwatch player that plays on PC and you talk to an Overwatch player that plays on PlayStation or Xbox, there's a clear difference in skill level and ability, mostly because they have the advantage of mouse and keyboard. Now, why would you try to limit yourself if you're trying to be a competitive gamer to, play on a controller? Now, if you go to any esports event, every time you're watching it, what are they usually playing on? PCs. They're usually playing on PCs. Now, PlayStation is dominating the console world right now. That Nintendo is coming up and kicking the crap out of Microsoft right now in the console world. So as a a company that has always been surrounded and been very enveloped with, PC gaming, with, software and all the things that they're doing in that scope, it only makes sense for them to try to broaden that. And I feel like this is a move long term to try to transition console gamers to being on the PC. That way they can take over that sector. Because when it comes down to it, Mac players, like if you don't buy a Mac to play games, and if you do, I'm sorry. If you have a Mac right now and you play video games, I'm going to go ahead and give you a recommendation. Sell your Mac and buy a custom-built desktop and actually play video games on a PC like you should.
Yeah,
but
that one I agree with.
Yeah, so like I don't know. Like I feel like this is more long-term. And at what point does it become a console versus a PC? At what point does it just the entire industry transition to that? Because the only difference, in my opinion, is power and, access. Being able to sit on your couch with the remote and playing the game. So I just don't see why you would sit there and play with mouse and keyboard on your Xbox and not just get a gaming PC. It just doesn't make much sense to me.
Well, the only thing, I think that, thinking about it, I think that totally makes sense the way you say it. Like at that point, you are pretty much playing on a low budget PC. But the only thing that I would bring up to debunk your theory, and I can't find it. I don't know what it is, but I have a vague recollection of, like, I want to say a month ago or a couple months ago, something like that, of talk about something coming out, and I thought it was Xbox. Someone's coming out with basically what Nintendo tried to do with, like, the N64 or whatever, or claimed they were going to do with a virtual console. Who was that? Who am I thinking of?
A virtual console, as in
someone came out and said that they wanted to the next console that they're working on is supposed to be basically virtual.
Oh, okay. No, I think you're thinking of, this might be Microsoft. Are you talking about the virtual,
like the all streaming?
Yes, the all streaming, where what they're working on is streaming gameplay to where you don't have to have like a high-end graphics card or a processor to play the game. You just need it's all ran through like online. And hold on, let me look up. I think it's called GeForce Now.
Are you thinking of NVIDIA GeForce?
Yeah, GeForce Experience maybe. Hold on, I'm sorry guys, I have to look this up. But it's basically like you can stream the game straight through. They have these servers, and I believe it's. I'll have to look it up, but like.
Well, no, you're right. That's what it is. It's the NVIDIA GeForce Now. I literally just got a beta code to start doing that now. And what it is you can play pretty much any game that's compatible with this service of theirs, and they do all the graphics powering and everything on their servers, but you are still playing the game. So like, I could have this, 2 gig of RAM, netbook PC that with, maybe an Atom processor or whatever, and I can sit back and play Overwatch that would normally no way in any shape or form be able to play on this, but now I can.
Oh, okay. So actually with that actually supports your theory, Devin, because that supports this idea of like taking consoles like, well, taking the question of why don't people get new gaming or new PCs instead of just hooking up a keyboard and mouse to their gaming console? Like, what sense does that make? And now it seems like it's coming down to price, because let's be honest, what are the priciest parts of a brand new built PC or a custom built PC? It's going to be your CPU, your graphics card for sure, your RAM, absolutely. But if you're going to take all that and they're going to do all that on another system and all you're doing is streaming it, oh my goodness, you've got yourself that is a cheap PC.
Have you guys ever, like, and this is very minimal in comparison, but have you guys ever been on Steam? And, like, I just figured this out the other day. So, I'm a huge Total War fan. I've played Total War since Medieval. I have both Warhammers, Total War Rome 1 and 2. I play the crap out of it. I have thousands of hours into Total War. And I have my work computer. It's right beside me. Then I have my desktop computer. And I'm sitting on my couch. And I'm like, okay, I feel like playing Rome. And I'm going to download it on my work computer. Don't tell work I'm doing that. I might get fired. Probably not. We'll find out. But yeah, definitely don't tell them I'm doing that. But I'm sitting on my couch. I'm going to play Rome. It's a big game. We're talking 40 gigs of download. So I'm like, okay, this might take a while. And I go on there and I see a button that says stream. I'm like, what the heck is this? I hit it. My computer in my room is on. Okay. Next thing you know, I walk into my bedroom. Total War Rome 2 is playing on my desktop computer, and I'm playing it through my laptop. I'm not using an ounce of anything on my actual laptop. I'm using all the power from my desktop and playing it on my laptop. And that blew my mind. I was like, I did not even realize this existed. And then that's when I figured out GeForce Now was coming out. So, this just all comes back to me, and I feel like this is where Microsoft's going. And, correct me if I'm wrong, call me out in 5 years, but I do not think Microsoft will be making consoles for the next 10 years. I think they're out of the game.
I am going to say baloney. I almost said another
Call
word.
me out.
I was like, oh, man. Okay, because here's the thing. There are some people that love consoles. Me, as an example. I am not a PC gamer, not the slightest. I play solitaire on PC. Those are the games that I play. I call me old, whatever. But when it comes to playing a Halo or a Call of Duty or Rocket League, whatever, I want to hold a controller. I do not want to have to worry about pressing R to reload and then make sure my fingers are on WASD to move around and all this. No, I don't want to do that.
You ever tried it?
I have, actually, yes.
It's much better.
No, it's a pain in my backside. God, this is a struggle. But, so, if Xbox decides, hey, we're still going to keep the Xbox brand, there's just no longer Xbox consoles. It's all just going to be PCs now. That's going to suck because, I'm a huge Halo fan, and I don't want to have a gaming PC, one that I can't afford right now because they're so expensive. In order to run the graphics that you have nowadays, you're spending $1,500 and or more just to be able to play these. That's a lot of money. Whereas in Xbox, which by the way, the Xbox One is only $500. I guarantee if you went out and you spent the money on all of those parts individually to make something that's even comparable to that, you will spend more than $500. It's giving something that's super expensive to people that can actually afford it. That's where they make their money.
Here is my argument. And I don't mean to say you're wrong, but this just kind of complements my argument in general. You're saying that it's cheaper for them to grab a console. Well, what I'm saying is in the future, it will be the exact same price to do so. You can buy a very, very, very cheap and inexpensive PC and play it, all the games that you want to play, games that most people can't play because they're too graphically intensive, running it at very high frame rate on that game or on that PC without having to spend $1,500. And here's a little stat. Did you know that 62% of the gamers play on PC?
Oh, yeah.
62% and rising. So, in the next 10 years, who's to say, and me just thinking business-wise, why would you not tap into the majority of the gaming market? Especially when you can make it affordable and more accessible to people. If everyone had access to play these games at a higher... Because there's no doubt about it that PC games will always have better frames, will have better graphics, and better reliability than a console ever will have, period. I don't care what you throw at me. I could put together my own custom-built PC that will beat any console, hands down. It's just going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
And if you can give me that without having to spend the money, why would I not do that? And when you have a majority of the gaming market that is involved in PC gaming, it's a no-brainer. So, I think that's where they're moving. Tell me if I'm wrong later. We'll find out.
I think this is Here's the thing, David. I don't think this is a question of getting. I don't think this is getting rid of consoles necessarily, but this is really reverting back to what is a console. It's basically a low-end computer that's exclusively used for gaming. But at the heart of a console, it's technically a computer.
Oh yeah,
And
I don't
so if you
disagree
add
with that.
keyboard and mouse into it, it's kind of like a PC with its own kind of Xbox operating system in a way. And so what this isn't talking about getting rid of consoles, but this is talking about getting rid of the lines, blurring the lines between a console and a personal computer. It's about, say you do still go out and buy a console, but instead, like, this thing's a relatively tiny piece of hardware that may be the size of most disc cases that we have now, and you just kind of put it next to your monitor, hook it up, and then you can play PC games for the same low price, and maybe even lower, because the hardware doesn't need to be intensive. You're no longer worrying about, like, okay, we need to keep up with the Xbox game, or the console game. I mean, we need to keep adding to it as far as graphics and other stuff like that goes. Instead, it's more about, okay, we need to make this affordable, and we need to set up a subscription. People can pay monthly fees and basically have a Netflix for their video games. And here's the system you use to do it: $150 or $200.
And I'm not saying that consoles are going to go away. I'm saying Microsoft is losing in the console space, and I'm saying Microsoft consoles will no longer be a thing in 10 years. I still think Sony, I still think Nintendo. Nintendo will never get past that family-friendly console. That's what they are. That period. I just don't see them going past that. They have their titles that are just very family-friendly, that are perfect for what they do. PlayStation does what they do very well, and I just don't think Microsoft is going to be in that same space. So I still think consoles will be a thing. I just don't think Microsoft consoles will be a thing.
Devin, you've got me so on board right now. I am so excited for that. I think you've totally got me. This is happening.
Have I made
right
a compelling
now.
argument? Have I made a compelling argument?
I love it. And you know what? When that subscription service, when that's like fully released and everything, I'm going to be the first person to try it out. David, you've got my my envy, my friend, for having access to the beta. I'm excited about it.
I'm really looking forward to kind of testing out. Like, I don't know what games are, like, compatible with this, but I'm hoping to maybe try it out this week, and then I'll be able to give you guys somewhat of a preview maybe next week.
Well, we'll look forward to hearing it.
Yeah.
Maybe a little podcast topic we can use.
Yeah.
Well, with that, boys, I think we should probably wrap it up. But
Well, real quick.
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say I like to try to end the podcast like is there anything that we want to pimp out, or like your Twitter accounts if somebody wants to reach out and find you, or talk to you more on something.
Yeah, you can hit me up at my personal account is S1K_Evo. It's EVO. Yeah, if you want to hit me up personally, that's where to hit me at. I'm not going to give you my personal one because I never update it. But with anything gaming related, it's S1K_EVO.
If you want to see the trash that I post on Twitter, you can go to Games with BP with the @ symbol for it, of course, and you could be my 4th follower. That would be excellent.
I need to teach you some things, my friend.
And if you want to follow me on my personal Twitter account, because I use it for business and for personal stuff, it is all lowercase at David Fraley27. That's Fraley.
Would you say you use your account for pleasure as well?
Yes.
Well, guys, I think that's about it. Thank you for listening to the Sick and Wired podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're on iTunes now, Podbean, and you can also check us out on YouTube. Just look up Sick Critic and you'll find us. And don't forget to go to sickcritic.com for all your latest gaming news and reviews. But with that, I'm Devin, and we're signing out.
See ya.